But I want to talk about russet. I call it russeting, but you tell me all the time that I used the wrong word. Russet. Yeah, russeting. I call that, but it is rust. Yeah. Rust, I call it.
Remember? Oh, rust. You call it rust.
Yeah, I call it rust. Yeah. And rust is just on pears, guys. This what is the biggest problem in pears? Can everybody help me on this one?
Limb rub.
Limb rub and russeting. That's it. It's very simple. If you call that, if you solve those problems today, then actually you should be very happy to pay my bill all the time. And that's good. And then the pack out goes. But anyway, russeting, we talk about that very quickly. It's a big problem this year, and oh yeah, I have to control that one. Sorry, I was hoping that it all happens, but it doesn't. Okay, but you see, I will show you very quickly. There's a little bit of rusting inside the fruit here, and you see a little bit of rusting, and that's quite often from rust mites. Okay, it's not only the red that do some beautiful things. So I have to put this one back again. I can't see there. Yep. Not very good. Doesn't really matter. That's okay. This guy's russet start early in the fruit life season. Actually, shortly after bloom. It's the most critical time is actually the first when the fruit sets. So 6 weeks after, that's actually the critical time. This again, I just explained a little bit. This you get the trees start to grow. You get a rapid cell division going on in spring, and the cuticle is actually not able to expand. And the cuticle means actually outside layer of the cells. Actually, on your fingers, that's cuticle as well. That's the outside on the cells. And under those cracks, they die, guys, and then you get a cork cambium, and that's what you call russeting. You see that cork layer coming in, and technically it is fantastic. Once the tree try to protect themselves to get more injuries, but unfortunately, as a supermarket, we don't want to see that on the fruit. This is actually quite natural. This it is just actually that the fruit try really to protect themselves, not to get injured more. You see, you've got some examples, and you probably have some extreme examples there from frost. You guys don't see too much frost, but you can have it, the rings. And even here you see, I thought it was a nice picture actually, they come from the internet, but it's where the flower pedicles are frozen in. Of course, I come from Holland where frost was a big issue. We had overhead irrigation. We could have sometimes -10 in spring. You know, that was, and this year they have another frost. You probably guys saw that when you go to Europe. In Belgium, Austria, they have hardly any crop this year from frost. But, and the people who got apples, they got beautiful rings. That actually in Holland we call them ties, and that was a way to sell them. It was all a tie around your neck, basically. But anyway, that's what it is. That's again the critical cracking. Actually, they actually keep on developing a little bit. This and that's why actually it goes even bigger. In the beginning it is small and it grows with your fruit. Okay, this it is an it is sort of wax actually what it happens, and it is a mixture of alcohol, parabens, fatty acids, and all that. This also actually the structure is very important. You find actually that some varieties will have no rust and other varieties get very quickly, and it has to do actually with your cell structure on the skin. This, for example, in apples is that more clear, but if you have golden licious, for example, everybody knows that it's more susceptible to rusting than, for example, a pink lady. Pink lady is very hard to rust, but you can. And granny is hard to rust, but you still can. But there's in pears, you find some varieties rust really easy, and some varieties we don't mind to rust. It's like Bosc. We call it actually bronzing, but actually we like them to see nice and bronzing. This it is also generic again, okay. And actually the rusted areas, I just have to explain it a little bit. They sit on the outside, and actually the backs, if that would be on the top, then actually the rust would actually not showing up so much. It would be really handy, but unfortunately it happens under that mark, the waxing. So actually that dries out even, and that's why you have sometimes they crack on that rusting. So unfortunately, that's again This, and everybody knows this. This year we had quite a bit of russeting in this district, and everybody saw that probably, is it? Even in Cobram, you guys saw that, russeting a little bit more than you normally have. This, I saw it quite a bit on the fruit this year, and of course, russet develop on conditions of high humidity and quite a bit of rain. But actually the most worst is actually dew. If you're very heavy dews or misty rain in the spring, it's actually more russeting than actually very heavy showers. There's again, and the problem is in a humid environment, is even in the netting, guys, you have to watch this a little bit. If you grow pears on the netting, your skin is much thinner. We see that with apples as well. If you go under netting, the skin is actually very, very thin on the netting. And that can cause more russeting if it stays wet for a long time. Not necessarily under netting, but if it's under netting, you've got higher humidity. So that's one thing you have to watch a little bit. Everybody said frost. Anyway, everybody have seen it probably in their lifetimes once, in probably all districts. And then you have actually the environmental issues, like the growth spurt in spring. And there's also like, again, what I see quite often actually is that people have, we got fruit set and it is still moist and people wait a little bit long with watering. That can cause rusting as well. You know, people say, oh, the tree don't need it, but the tree don't need it, but the fruit needs it. It needs really to regularly grow. And again, I've got growers who say, look, in the spring they only water once a week. And that's it. And I said, fantastic, but we can cause rusting with doing that. If you've got drip, then you water every day, and if you've got micro sprinklers, you water probably every second day. That's what I call regular watering. Keep that in mind, guys. Rusting is quite caused by irrigation, and there's nobody here from the DPI who I upset, but I hate deficit irrigation, that word, but I think they're doing a lot of damage to fruit quality in general. I think we don't give enough water in general. Some people overwater, but most people underwater. Okay. That's, oops, what did I do? Wrong one. Okay, we talk about the pear rust mites. This is probably one of the biggest problems. People underestimate the rust mites, and this is a little bit tricky for the IPM actually. And I know that the rust mites are very good source for the predators to eat on, and they normally don't do much damage. In the apples actually, we got an apple rust mite, and it developed very slowly, and I would not like you to spray for apple rust mite. Sometimes we do, to be honest, but we actually have sometimes, like with jazz, with the Montague, that jazz, there's so much rust mites on it that actually the tree don't grow. Because when the trees are very young, we have to sometimes spray for the rust mite. But the rust mites in general, guys, I just want to say that it is the predator lives on it, and it is only doing damage in that early stage of development from the fruit, not later on in the season. Okay, just keep that in mind. Just don't go out with your microscope and kill the rust mites. Okay, there's again the rust mites cause a lot of damage on the pears, and you see that quite often, especially on the Williams, guys. You see that the rust creeps up. The rust mites live in here, and you see this area with rust mites. You probably have all seen the rusting on the thing, and it was not from chemical. It comes from the rust mites, and they call the rust mites for that reason. Okay. They make the apple rusty. But this is damage, and that has to do with the thing. This again, that's probably it. This is the rust mites, and again, there's a photo from the internet. I got actually a nice video, but I could not get it on the, I'm not technical enough to get it nicely running around on the computer. But the rust mites are very small. You can't find them with a normal little glass. You need 200 times as strong to see this one. It is like a carpet, so if you look in the carpet, you find actually carpet mites in there, and that's how small they are. If you don't see them with your naked eye, you can't see them like that, you have to take it to your microscope and have a look. And you can find them on the buds as well in the spring, because you can actually find them before the pests start to come. But the rust mites is a big problem, can be. This again, it overwinters in the bark. This is very easy. That's why I said you can actually look on the buds before the spring, if they are there. Sometimes they are not there. They can open the fruit clusters when they open and feed and lay eggs. They are very, very, they develop very quickly. And the active album females and males, if you got them both, that's all good. That works fantastic to develop. And then you go to two stages. And this is what I want to say, guys. Pear rust developed twice as fast as apple rust mites. Because we got apples rust mites, and probably you guys have never seen it, but you grow pink ladies, and then you don't see rust mites, and you never see rust. But when you are aware of it, then you can still find them. But actually, they come much later. They come almost like 6-7 weeks after fruit set, and that's why you never see a problem with it. But pears are there in flowering, and that's why they can cause so much damage. Okay, this biological control, we talk about that again. This, you see mites, green and brown lacewings again. Normally I would say rust mites are fantastic to see in the orchard. If I see it in the apple orchard, I'm really excited. But predators live on it very, very easy. This is really good. But if you have them, if you got mites, again, this, if you upset your predators, your rust mites really start to develop. And see, pear mites give you early damage in the season. This is sampling should be begin on cluster bud stage, very early in the season. To look for, this is something for you guys to look for, just to work out the numbers. And if they are low, then you will see there's actually no problems. But especially on Williams, okay, that's where there's the biggest problem. And I saw some photos on the internet and I didn't respond actually, that somebody was setting photos on the Williams, and they asked what it was. No, I don't like to be sitting on the internet and telling them that it is rust mite, but that was actually rust mite damage. Okay, but you see that a study, okay, guys. So this is a study from the United States that 1% they can actually of William pears actually can damage. This on Williams they are not tolerant. Peckhams are much more tolerant for it, but you see, it's only 5 mites per fruit, and it's very low tolerance actually on pears. But the good news is, we can actually control this actually with a good old chemical, what we call wettable sulfur. We don't have to go with harsh chemicals. We can actually spray on this before actually on the pink stage, and you bring those numbers down really, really easy before you have this. Technically, it is easy to control this one with wettable sulfur or other, how do you say that, lime sulfur, or actually oil could do it as well. You don't have to go with harsh chemicals in to control that much. But I have been going back a little bit in time. Sometimes we put in one miticide, that one sulfur is a miticide, and actually you have very clean pears. This again, it's easy to do that. This and this is again, now we start back to russeting again. Regular irrigation, guys, to promote uniform cell division. Nutrition-wise, a little bit of phosphorus. If you have good phosphorus in your orchards, then you have the cells a little bit smaller. This avoids also a little bit of rusting. That's really important. If you're low on phosphate, then you have to address that for rusting. This is one of those things what you can do nutrition-wise as well. In general, is of course soil health is very important, but phosphate in Europe we got a big problem in phosphorus, but in Australia, in general in the orchard, the levels are okay. We never see really big problems with too high a phosphate. Actually, it's only some orchard, but in general we are on a little bit lower side. This and this one, I just warn you guys. I didn't know that either, but I learned my hard way to see with one grower, especially in Cropperum, that was a combination from late root pruning and actually not watering in the time, and then we of course russeting ourselves. And then the Dutch guy we had last year here, they said as well that if you do root pruning on pears, do it now. Start early in the winter. Don't leave it too late. And that has to do with the fluctuation from the growth. If you root prune late, it means that the cell division stops a little bit and then it starts again, and that can cause rusting. All the 6 weeks of growing, if you have any interfering like stress, it can stop and then start, and then you can a little bit damage this rusting start. This late root pruning is another one. And again, that's with the cell division actually. The first 6 weeks is the most important. And there's another one actually. If you have very, very over-fertilized with high nutrition, especially nitrate, you can cause rusting as well. I'm not saying that normal programs do it, but I have seen people actually pumping in like 60, 70 units of N very quickly in the season, you know, for one reason, they had good reasons to do it, but actually then you got too much growth, and you get too much shoot growth, and actually the pear is standing still from too much shoot growth. Just keep that in mind. A little bit of everything in moderation, we'd say. Application of well-designed foliar programs. People who know and work with me, I always recommend small amounts of nitrate. You spray actually ureas, like on pedal stage. That's actually very positive for rust control. If you do nice, regular and foliar spray, even through your blossom, set more cells through your set. That's why we put actually ureas even in blossom on. And that avoid rusting, okay. Let's keep that in mind. This all are good. Now, calcium and boron, I don't have to tell you, it's very important for the elements for cell division and growth. This is very important to keep that up. And we talk a little bit about enzymes actually. This calcium activates enzymes. Actually, enzymes on fruit, and people are probably not aware of that, but actually when you stimulate enzymes on your fruit, it actually stops the rusting. You get a much more amino acids. People spray that sometimes if there is a stress situation. In general, you don't have to do that, and tree produce that himself, but you can spray it on. And then the molybdenum spray, actually that's a lot of natural resistance. That's another one you can actually use actually to minimize that burst of growth. If you are low on molybdenum, actually the tree actually busts out, and again you get a fluctuation of growth. A few little trace elements can help you enormous, keep your clean fruit cleaner. Oh, I did it again. What did I do? Okay. This again, like I said, guys, you can have different varieties. This is not. Some people say to me, I sprayed the whole orchard the same, and that variety got no rust, and that got it. This can't be chemicals. That's not necessarily the case. Okay, it can be easily chemicals. Wetting, okay, with limited rainfall. That's what I said. If you got misty days, that's probably the worst for rusting. And like in Tasmania, we got probably much more rusting than what you guys have here. And another one is lack of fungicide program. If you actually spray very irregular fungicide program, say that you've got a dry season, and in the spring you spray only, but you've got very heavy mist and all that, you can still cause rusting. And fungicide actually protects you for rusting. Okay, and again, frost, we know that already. Chemicals, okay, and copper is one of them. And you guys know that, and I don't have to tell you. But if you apply copper too late, it can cause rusting, or spraying them too. But in chemicals, guys, can do a lot of damage. Powdery mildew can cause, of course, rust as well. People don't recognize that quite often. And the chemical mix, if you mix too many chemicals together, you can cause rusting as well. This, what can we do? Another thing is, the GR, this Maxel, for example, GA4 plus 7, that's Maxel. You can use that actually, stop that for rusting, and that works actually. The GA stimulate actually, they stimulate the the waxing. That helps actually to protect that, and this is very common. That's half liters of Maxel, and sometimes I recommend it on pears. If you see just rusting, don't start early on pears actually. If you use a little bit of Cyclin, but if you actually spray too early, you probably can say easily save 3-4 weeks after fruit set you can use it, but don't use it on pedal stage, because it actually can make your pear longer. Okay, and this Maxel, if you use that, keep a little bit more. But again, you can keep your skin finish actually much cleaner to actually increase your enzymes. This this GA can be used. And it's also, if you use it too much, you get actually more. It is actually very good for your leaves, but it actually you can actually reduce your flower buds for the next season. This is a warning. Don't spray it just too many times. Okay, and this is another one. I have seen that before actually. People spray and only have top nozzles locked or another nozzle locked, and one nozzle open too many, and you know, they go and spraying in the spring and they didn't check the spray equipment. And I have seen people actually have one nozzle close and all that kind of things. But the biggest problem is this, poor mixing. People fill up the sprayer, they don't have the sprayer mixing, and actually the chemicals go sit on the bottom, start up, and then spray the first 10 trees, and then you got all russeting on the first 10 trees. This mixing, and this is a common problem actually, or they go and have a cup of coffee and leave the tractor not running and not mixing, and then they start again, and then some chemicals go to the bottom, and then you get a problem. This again, and then high concentrated materials. If you put too much in the tank, that could be another thing. And then, of course, everybody knows that watch the weather when you spray. Okay. And what I want to say is, if you have sprayed and it's start misty or it gets wet, or you spray at night, for example, and you get very heavy dew in the mornings, that can cause rusting. There's all kind of good things. And this is one people don't realize, that spraying with a very high water rate. If you go and blast your 2,000 liters of water on, you can cause yourself damage with the water you put on. Think about it, okay? 1,000 liters is probably enough to spray your orchard, especially in the spring. But if you go with 2,000 liters and you wet it yourself too much, and especially if you spray at night, you can do nice, beautiful damage. This, again, rusting increase with pesticide or nutrition sprays, and I mean, especially with zinc and all that. But anyway, we'll talk about that. And then you get actually the liquids, what can actually cause more injuries than the vegetable powders. ECs, guys, it is very simple. This, if you use two concentrate together and with a vegetable powder, can lead to compatibility problems. If you use chemicals, guys, like ECs, you know that an EC is a liquid. If you put that in and you put another one in and you put a powder in, you can actually that all those chemicals have surfactants in it. They put in nice stuff so that it stays nice mixed up in the chemical shed and in your bottle. But unfortunately, if you mix too many, you can cause some damage on the fruit. Just be really aware of that, okay? And whenever possible, if you use two powders or two liquids, it's better than actually a powder and a liquid. Okay, and again, if you mix, guys, you do first the soluble packets in it, and then you do the vegetable powders, and then you do the flowables, and then you do the ECs. ECs should be going in the tank, and I mean actually that you have filled up your tank already to at least half before you put any chemicals in your tank, guys. You fill up water, fill in the chemicals, make sure that you got your tanks already half full before you start chemicals putting in. And I would say everybody does it, but I've seen it before. They put the chemicals in and then start filling up the tank. Okay, that's not going to work too well. And if you use fertilizers, always last. Very simple. This is what you should do in general. It will be on the internet, it's all good. This again, I must admit, ECs. I know that actually the chemical industry is going to ECs. It's very convenient. You got liquids. It's healthier. You can just pour it in your tank. But unfortunately, ECs give you more problems than powders. And the industry is not, for health and safety aspect, it's probably EC is nicer, but unfortunately for your fruit it's worse. Anyway, that's a nice one to think about. Yeah. Anyway, this is this is probably one of the biggest mistakes actually what people do is this one. You know, mix your sprayer. How many people leave the sprayer going when you fill up? Most people do. It's good actually, but I mean the most sprayers you can turn the fan off so that you don't stand there in the wind, but I see it quite often actually, people fill up and then start to fire it all up again, and I see that happening, okay, and it should be half full or 2/3 full before you put chemicals in. And that's what a mistake actually, I see that quite often, and people fill that up and then they started filling. It's practical, but okay, just a few chemicals we'll talk about. Ammonium, you don't use that much in pears, I'm aware of that. ATS, we use it a lot more in apples. But actually, sometimes I have been using this a little bit as an experiment on growers. ATS on pears can do a little bit of damage. This, I saw a little bit of rustling from that. Keep a little bit an eye on that if you use ATS. Boron is actually very safe, but not when you put boron first in your tank. Okay, so keep that in mind if you put boron last. And then not all pesticides actually, but some pesticides could react with your boron. Yeah, but especially if you put it in first. Fertilizer always lasts, guys. Even if you don't think about me, then make sure if you fill up your tank, remember, fertilizer should be last. Boron, trace elements should be always last. It can cause a reaction with your chemicals. Okay, calcium chloride. Some people spray calcium nitrate actually. They can rust apples, they can mark pears, and it can cause leaf burn, we know that. But it depends on temperature and number of applications. I mean, it is quite safe, chloride, believe it or not. But again, if you spray it with very high temperature, you can do damage. You get a sort of spray burn, and also rusting actually. You see that a lot on jazz actually. We use a lot of calcium chloride on jazz, and you see that on the apples. You see a really stripe on it. I see that on pears too. People use high water volume sometimes in the district. You got a V trellis, they go to the big trees and the high volume is good, and then they go with the same water volume to the V trellis and actually put too much water out, and then you see the pears. You look inside and you see nice rusting on the pears. Okay, you see that inside, you look and you know that it's chemical burn. Okay? When you get old like me, I've seen it all actually. Then you can see that damage. This again, Captain. This is actually very good for avoiding actually rusting, but again you have to watch and read the label. It is if you do it too early, Captain is actually very negative. People say Dayland is causing rust. I would say Dayland is safer than Captain in the spring. Okay, just the other way around. I never apply Captain with all, guys. There's sulfur in it. If you want to rust for it, you do that one. Fantastic. It's good for maybe the boss to give it a trial. That works really nice. This again, 2 weeks. But read the label, guys. This is all on the labels. Carbon, you guys know that, and I know we use not on pears too much carbon, and I hope people actually don't use carbon on pears. On apples we thin with it, but again, some people use it as a pesticide on pears, but you can cause actually damage on Williams quite easily with carbon. And Lord's band, the good old Lord's band, okay? People say we always have that discussion. That's one thing I have to say, that if you look actually label on Lord's band, and that's why I talk a little bit about it, you see nothing. But actually when you look on the label of Dayland, if you mix Dayland and Lord's band together, you can cause very much rusting. But it is actually not on the label from Lord's band, but it's on the label from Dayland that you should not mix Dayland with Lord's band. This again, very important to read your labels. And I had to read both labels, but I had an instance in Orange actually, that one guy sprayed actually Dayland with Lord's band on his apples, and he could pick, and that was on Pink Ladies, and I thought they are hard to get rusted, and they all went to juice that year. He mixed that mix in spring, and it went really rusted his apples totally. This again, that was Lord's band, and of course, see, what are we using? What are we using the last couple of years? The vegetable powder is hardly to get anymore. We use actually the ECs, and ECs is a higher risk in Lord's band. But make sure that your weather is good with Lord's band if you use it. I know we don't want to use it. I know the IPM people look at me, ooh, that's the worst one to see, but anyway, we are in a district where they use it sometimes. And I'll do it again. Okay. Anyway, Sillet, we talked about it before actually, Dodine, Sillet. They can also rust it actually fruit. Mangazap you mentioned on the predators. Mangazap is another one. Can cause, if you do too many Mangazaps, guys, that can rust at the fruit as well. Make it all complicated. This Mangazap can kill predators and make also actually your fruit nice and rusty. It's a good reason to use maybe only once or twice, but not many more. This again, that's it. Oils, I'm actually offended to use a little bit of oils, and people are think that are crazy. I think in the organic, I work with the organic growers, we use a little bit of summer oils, and I'm actually even a fan of, for my side, to use oils, like summer oils. It works fantastic in the district, but I warn everybody to use and read the label, especially oil and lime you should never do, and also you have to mix really properly. That's one thing with oil. This again, 3/4 full tank, mix it, spray, and make sure that the temperatures are not high. That's only the methods I have. I make sure that the leaves are dry and not high temperatures. But it's a very good actually to suffocate your mites without affecting your predators too much. And this is my pest hate, guys. I know we've got chemical guys here. Surfactants. Don't use them. Full stop. Okay, how's that? Big statement. But especially not the first 6 weeks after paddleful, guys. Surfactants can do any damage you want. They penetrate to that skin, what we talk about, and that layer, if you do damage with a surfactant, then you're on the back foot, and then you have to work the whole year for basically a little bit. Every time when people ask me what is the problem, and I must say I don't do court cases, I give them to Steve Tanger, surfactant is involved. Keep in mind, guys, don't use surfactants. Chemicals got enough surfactants in it to put a stick to it, okay? There's more chemicals that put, even like Dalen, got 3 different kind of surfactants in it so that they work. Because most chemicals don't need it. Why would you put another surfactant on? High risk. Is again, and especially in cool weather and dry, slowing conditions. Urea, okay, it's actually quite safe, but the recommendation is 2% rurate. Urea in general can't rust. There's only very high application. If you stick to 5 kilos urea per hectare, it's actually very positive for preventing rusted. If you go like 10, 15 kilos, you run a risk. It's only probably when the temperatures are higher, but it isn't burning, basically. Normally nitrate, I hear that all the time, more than nitrate that cause rusting. That's it, forget about it, okay. That's nitrate never rusts, except when you burn. But that's a different story. You have to go with 25 kilos in your tank at least. Okay, zinc. This is another one. And I call that zinc sulfate. But in general, guys, no zinc is safe. How is that? In chelated forms, guys, I'm always really interesting. They come out with every year new chemicals. And I can tell you one grower, and I'm not allowed to say anything about it, but that grower got nice money in his pocket. He sprayed a new formulation of zinc out. It came around 3 years ago. It was totally safe, no rusting. He sprayed it on his grannies. Fantastic rusting. Would be the best product we could have used on balls ever. Okay, but keep in mind, guys, zinc in general is a very, very risky one. If you use it post-harvest. Zinc is very important for fruit set, but don't spray it in the season. Especially not the first 6 weeks from paddleful to, say, Christmas. Don't use zinc on your pears, or if you don't want to rust it. And I have to say, probably out of the 10 cases I know, that was zinc involved and a surfactant involved. The zinc is always in classical one. It does it every time. Okay, and this is it. Always read the label. And that's it. We have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, very good.
Always read the